Hello, I'm Christoph, your guide to the brain and nervous system, and the true nature of reality. This video explores the mind-body problem. Sometimes gets talked about as a mind-body connection. Sometimes I'll even hear a brain-body connection. But I want to highlight something. The brain is part of the body. The tongue is an organ, the hand is an organ, and the brain is an organ. It's just a body part. It's a neat body part. You can make a bunch of YouTube videos about how it works and how it connects. The information system of the nervous system is this rich, fascinating physical thing. It's a body thing. And for most neuroscientists, that's all they care about. All they care about is the body, that is the brain. A neuroscientist is interested in the brain. How's this organ organized? What are the different parts and how do they connect? How does energy physically move through it to make things happen? We have the electrical charge moving from the eye into here, letting me know that this is going on in the world around me visually. I have electrical energy going from here to here to here to tell my hands to do this or my mouth to do this. And sidebar, that's great. It's true that you can have a totally philosophically materialist account of brain science. Brain science needs to focus on just the body. Brain science gets a lot of mileage just talking about what's going on physically in the brain and the body in terms of chemistry and electricity and physics. That's all material. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz in the 1700s articulated the mind-body problem beautifully, and he made a really great defense of this idea that we can't just brush mind away and say it doesn't exist. We can't say it's all brain. We can't say that if you know how the energy comes in and moves around and causes movement, that's all you need to describe the entirety of reality as physics. Because Leibniz's mill. Take your brain, take a living brain, make it as big as a warehouse, as big as a mill where they like grind up flour, there's a big water wheel or whatever, as big as a factory. You go inside and you see a cell. There it is. Oh my gosh, you zoom out a little bit. I can see all of the cells of the visual system firing. There's the retina. It goes down there. It crisscrosses. There it goes. It hits the occipital lobe. It comes forward. Boom. I know what that is. I've seen that pattern in my textbook before. He's seeing red. He's seeing the color red. But when you see all the little movements of dendrites and axons that corresponds with the appearance of red in the visual field of the mind, yet in that big blown up brain, you do not see redness. Red does not exist in the brain. Red exists on the visual field in the mind. No matter how completely we explain what's going on physically in this brain or this nervous system or this body or the world, we do not find redness. We do not find the qualities of experience. Redness is an example of a qualia. It's a property of our experience. In visual experience, redness is a qualia, that's a color. The smell of roses. You could look at all of the chemicals that go into smelling roses. You could look at the shape of the cells in the nose, that when those chemicals land on them, they send out such and such through the olfactory system of the brain. You could see all that and say, oh yes, I know this pattern. That's the way the brain lights up when it smells roses. But the smell of roses? That can't be shown you in a textbook. It only arises in your mind, in the olfactory field. So that's an argument for why mind has to exist. The bodily account doesn't account for this thing that's arising. There are three positions that you can take on the mind-body problem. You can say everything is mind. What you call body is actually just mind. You could say everything is body. What you call mind, it's actually just body. Or you could take a position that there's both mind and body. One's mental, one's physical, but they both exist. The position that everything is mind, ultimately, is called idealism. Some people, especially in the English-speaking tradition, call it mentalism. Some idealists throughout history have said it's all a dream. Some interpretations of Buddhism have this idea. This idea that if we can change the way we think about the world, then that causes real changes in the material conditions of the world. If I think about things and I don't get uptight about them in the same way because I have this story in my head about how things are going to work out in the end, that affects my relationship with others. They move differently through the world. Different physical things happen. A kind of idealism or mentalism where this subtle stuff of the mind, of pure thought, is the cause of changes in my brain shape, brain wiring, brain firing, in my actions, my movements of my muscles, the actions of other people, the experiences of other people. It starts with mind and intention and will and choice and ideas, and those cause things to change in the world. There's a great Chinese philosopher, Zhuangzi, has this little passage. He says, I had a dream that I was a butterfly flying through the air. Or am I right now a butterfly dreaming that I'm a man? Bum, bum. That's pure idealism. People who say everything is body, that's called philosophical materialism. That's not materialism like all that I want is gold and Gucci handbags. Not that kind of materialism. It's philosophical materialism, as in everything is material. It all boils down to something concrete that we can understand physically and scientifically. And then the position that there's both mind and body, they both exist, they're both things but they're different, is dualism. Dual as in two, there's mind and body. Let's talk about dualism. When most people have read some philosophy, hear the word dualism, we think of Descartes. He said, listen. Science tells us how objects move through space, this body, they have brains. Brains seem to have a bunch of wires going out through the body, so it's kind of like a big machine. The body's a big machine. But there's also the mind. I have thoughts. I have this voice in my head. I'm imagining a pink elephant. And where is that in the world? Nowhere. It's not in anywhere. Maybe I just ate something that makes you hallucinate. I'm seeing this creature. That hallucination is not a real thing out there, but it is in my visual field that my mind is generating. He went so far as to say, the mind thinks thoughts like, I want to move my hand right now. And then it does. It seems like the mind makes the body do things. The mind as thinking thing makes the body do its thing. He said that it does this by acting on the pineal gland deep within the brain. Now in Descartes' time, they had no idea what the pineal gland did. They had just gotten over the whole taboo against cutting people's bodies open and slicing them up to see how all the wires connect. So he didn't know what the pineal gland did. He's like, well, we don't know what it does. Probably it's the seat of the mind's interaction with the physical world. Wrong. Not what the pineal gland does. So some people want to just brush dualism and mentalism aside and say, can we just stick with physics? But we can't throw the baby of Descartes' brilliance away with the bathwater of his ignorance of modern neuroanatomy. The question still begs, how could the mind possibly affect the body? One is this world of illusions and hallucinations and thoughts that aren't in space. They're in my visual field that's generated by all of this light. Imaginary visual world that's generated by the action of my will. How can that world touch this one? If not through the pineal gland, then how? That's called the hard problem of consciousness, the mind-body problem. How possibly could this dreamy, ethereal thing interact with this other world? Descartes said the pineal gland, that doesn't make sense. Spinoza said, yeah, mind and body, they coordinate, but we have no idea how. In fact, we don't need to know how. It's just the way it is. Maybe true. Leibniz said that every atom has some degree of mind in it, some degree of consciousness. Even the pen. Every atom in the pen has some dreamy, tiny little sleepy bit of consciousness. It's called Panpsychism. This is an answer to the mind-body problem that a lot of people take seriously today, including serious neuroscientists. They say that consciousness is a property of matter. And so they have the mind and body. They're dualists, but it projects very nicely onto the body-only model. You can keep your whole body-only explanation of how the brain takes in energy, puts out movement, etc., physics, all your biology, still true. But add in the fact that mind is another basic property of matter. Atoms have a little bit of mind, and if you get a lot of them together and they match together in just the right system, just the right shape, just the right form, boom, mind happens. That's another view of dualism. There's Descartes, there's Spinoza, there's Leibniz. You gotta talk about Kant. Immanuel Kant, Manny to the K. And he said, everything that we experience is mere phenomena. Let's say light bounces off my pen. I see this black thing in my visual field. But do I see the pen itself? Kant would say, no, the light bounces off of the pen. So maybe you see the light coming off of the pen. But you don't even see the light. The light strikes your body, your eyeballs, and gives rise to the mental representation of light, which is not the light itself. Mental representation arises in this thing called mind, this visual field that's being generated. It's different than the light that goes to here, that causes an impulse, that causes an impulse, that causes an impulse, that causes a bunch of impulses throughout my brain. Sure, the light is energy, the impulses are energy, this energy transduces into that energy, but the visual experience is different than all of that. We can never see the pen itself. I can't even feel the pen itself. I only feel my brain's interpretation of it. That interpretation is the mind. It's in the mental space, my experience. Kant said, all of this experience is formed by the mind. Not only is what you see just an illusion based on the light bouncing off of things that you never actually encounter themselves, not only is your sense of touch of things an illusion and you never actually touch the thing itself, you only feel the signals that get sent at you from it, but your whole story about the world, your whole sense that this is one thing and this is a different thing. It's just your mind making that up. Kant didn't quite call this dualism. He called this transcendental idealism. An idealism which says, yes, everything we experience is, in a sense, just an illusion generated by the mind. It's what the human system is built, shaped to give rise to in response to a world we can never truly know itself. We can only know our mental representation of it. And he was a dualist. Here's his dualism. Things are bodily or exterior if we can do science on them. If we can say, oh, it's so big, let's do a test. Do you agree it's that big? Yes. My measuring stick says it's that big. Your measuring stick says it's that big. We did science. We have confirmed that it is true, objectively true. Kant said objective just means intersubjective. It is true for this subject and that subject and that subject. Something that's scientifically true is objectively true because it's true for every subject, every person. Mental is just the label that we give to those experiences that are only experienced by one person. My experience of the hallucinatory elephant flying around my living room is a mental experience because I tell other people about it and they all say, no, I don't see that. It's subjective. That's how I know it's mental. My dream that only I have. How do I know if it's physically real or merely mental? Kant says, easy test. Are you the only person who experiences it? Then it is purely mental. Mind and body just means totally subjective, only I experience it. Physical, intersubjective. Multiple of us experience it. We can do science with it. So for Kant, everything, the physical and the mental, is an illusion, a representation created by the mind in response to stimuli that we never directly experience. We only get representations of them through our mind. So that's transcendental idealism, which includes a kind of dualism. Now for the materialists, the hard materialist argument. It's really hot right now because AI is taking off like crazy, and all the AI people learned from the old AI people who were in love with materialist philosophers, specifically Daniel Dennett. He said there is no mind. It is all material. We can do brain science. We can account for what's going on in terms of energy being transduced into charges that get sent along axons and cause movement to happen. That is the only explanation we need, and it is the ultimate explanation of everything. And he says, Qualia, you say that if you blow up the mind and walk into the mill and you see all the things happening that usually correspond to red, but you don't see redness itself inside the brain. If you go into a computer and watch a transistor, you don't see the app that shows up on the screen because it's more complicated than that. There isn't just one little gear that, boom, gives rise to all that you see on the screen of your app. It all works together and transduces into a different kind of energy that shows up on the screen. You can't go into a mill and see one of its products in the action of one discrete part of it. That's Dennett's response to Leibniz's mill. The app analogy is Dennett's analogy. This visual field that arises, and this redness, and this auditory experience that arises where sensation seems to meet consciousness. That's the app. The experience that Kant called this strange illusion that arises when the unknowable source of stimulus strikes our consciousness. Dennett says yes, there's a source of energy in the form of light waves, sound waves, etc., and it strikes the sense organs, and it causes all of these systemic movements that neuroscientists know very well. The same way electricity comes in from the wall plug into your computer, causes a bunch of transistors to move in specific ways, and then gives rise to the app on the screen. The app on the screen is called the user interface. We don't have to know computer science to work a phone. And Dennett would say, that's the way the mind is. This person that I am is the user of this brain and body. And the mind is just a little ephemeral hallucination that arises every instant to help mediate the brain's activity. And he says your whole idea that qualia, like the redness of the apple on your visual field, is some special thing that only you have access to, it's purely subjective. Dennett would say, do some more science. Test it. Do you call it red? Does that person call it red? Do you call it red when you're on this side of the thing? When you're on that side of the thing? He says the whole idea that mind is purely subjective just means you haven't done enough science. You can turn anything that's purely subjective into an intersubjective thing. Or if someone's hallucinating a pink elephant, then you can account for why that hallucination is happening in terms of what's going on in the neurons in their nervous system. So that is the case for materialism. Whereas transcendental idealism says there's this world that just arises for us in experience. We call that mind because it's unique. I can't describe red to you, I just have to point to it, that redness. Dennett would say the whole thing you're calling mind is just a throw-off of body. It's a step in the rich movement of this body and brain. Qualia, mental experience, we can be purely materialistic and not talk about them. So there you have it. Everything's kind of a dream. Thoughts and ideas and beliefs are really the cause of physical events in this physical world. Behaviorism. It's all physical. What we call mental only ever arises from the physical. And if you hack away the right physical parts, you ain't gonna have the same mental experience. If you have a certain kind of brain injury, boom, you can't even see color anymore. And then there's dualism. Everything that neuroscience says is right. Everything that physics says is correct. Yes, there is in fact a body, and it is pretty mechanistic, and it does give rise to mental experience. But that mental experience is just a different thing. There's redness and feelings of joy, and those can't be reduced down to a physical explanation. Mentalism, materialism, dualism. If you thought that this video was gonna tell you which one is right, no. I can't do that. This problem, is it a materialistic world? Is it an idealistic world? Is it a dualistic world? People much smarter than me have been arguing about this intelligently for over 4,000 years. It's a philosophy question, not a physics question. A metaphysics question. Metaphysics asks questions about what would even need to be true in the first place to start doing physics. In physics, of course, you can have hypotheses, you can have theorems, you can have laws, but in metaphysics, you can only have speculations, opinions, and heated arguments. I hope you had fun. This is Christoph, your guide to the human brain and nervous system, and basic nature of reality.